John Wesley was a minister in the Church of England, and he was considered a radical. And so they basically tried to clamp down on his enthusiasm for his faith. And as a result, he ended up creating these small societies in England, and they didn't think of themselves as another denomination. They just saw themselves as small societies within the Church of England. And over time, his religious fervor caused him to come to the United States. And so he's credited as the founder of Methodism in the United States. And so our denomination is part of the worldwide Methodist family. So there are lots of different Methodist branches, but ours is one of them. And so we are honored to have his name as the name of our church. And so that's who John Wesley is. He was what we call an itinerant preacher. He went from place to place on horseback, no less. I can't imagine what that would be like.
So what years were these?
Oh, let's see. I think it was like early 1700s.
Okay.
Because the AME Zion denomination was started in 1776. And so John Wesley would have had to do that at least 50 years before.
Wow.
So, and he would do tent revivals, and it's fascinating to me to think of ministry in that way, where you had no home base, you just went from place to place. I find it fascinating.
One of the longest names, denominations, John Wesley, African, Methodist, Episcopal, Zion Church. That's a lot of letters on a sign out front.
Yeah, it is, which is why we don't write out the whole thing. We say AME Zion. We don't abbreviate the Zion part because Zion is the name of the first church of our denomination. So we honor that church by using the full name. African simply describes most of the people in it. Not everyone happens to be of African heritage, but most people are.
How about back in John Wesley's days when he would travel by horseback? Was it primarily African?
No, back then it was primarily white. So the denomination has never had a racial litmus test. Anybody can belong to our denomination. It just happens that it was founded by African Americans, and so most of the people in it happen to be other African Americans.
And certainly has evolved over the years.
Yes. So we have a congregation in Maine that is probably 50-50. And we have other congregations throughout the denomination that have members of different ethnicities. We have churches in India. You would imagine in India, most of the members are Indian.
The church was started on Hope Street in Attleboro, the original founded church. And that church was operating until 1973, the original church. The members at that time decided to form a church. And a lot of the members, they were just former free slaves, and a lot of them worked in the factories. Most of them were maids and footsmen in Attleboro. And they worked for, the jewelry baron,
Yes.
the rich. And so they decided to help them build a church, their own church. So they got a lot of contribution from the community to build the first church on Hope Street. And from Hope Street, they had a fire and they had to rebuild the church. And they moved to Leroy Street in Attleboro. So the original building still resides on 32 Leroy Street in Attleboro.
I know that church very well.
That's the original church.